Okay, so today we're going to be doing the very first lab. We're going to go through it, and this week is the week of January 29th to February 4th. So this week, what you guys are going to have to accomplish, and I'll actually send an announcement in addition to it, is of course you need to complete this lab. I'm going to give you guys a little leeway since I wasn't able to make it last week since I was traveling. And then also we'll be touching base on some of the concepts and lecture today, this week. You'll also have an additional lab from Labster. That lab is going to be dealing with metrics and everything. And so we'll talk about that as well. I'll give you guys a little brief intro to it with a recording, so you guys will be able to do it. You'll be completing your MO2 homeworks, and you guys should already be in MO2 at this point. So you guys, I guess to get to the next part, you also need to make sure that you uploaded something. And I know you guys don't have your code. So if you guys could actually just do me a favor and just upload the site that I know that you guys got on that site. And that'll give you enough to get through the next part. But you won't get your grade for that until you actually upload it. And hopefully, I'm hoping by tomorrow, I will have my next set of codes. So, but I'm waiting for our business office and the company to get everything aligned. Okay. So let's go ahead and start on this lab so we can get through it. Okay, so you guys are all familiar with the mean, the mode, and the median. Just in case you're not, the mean is just going to be the average. So it's basically adding up everything together and dividing by the number of different values you have. So if we're talking about your exams, right? And so you'd add up all your exams together, and then you divide it by the number of exams, and that would give you the average to your exams. Okay. And the mode would be it's how frequent numbers show up, right, in a set of data. So for instance, if we have try to figure out why my MT is not showing up. So what I'll do is I'll actually put it on the board. Give me 1 second. Okay, so let's assume that we take a lot of exams for my class and get a 90, 90, 90, 79, 90, 92. 100. Okay, so if we're talking about the average or the mean, what we would do is we would add up all of these sums together. Okay, and then we have 7 numbers. So we have a total of 7 grades. And so we would just go 361 divided by 7. And this would be my average, or my mean. For my median, the median is the one that is seen most frequently. So in this case, we have 91, 90, 90, 90, 90. So we see 94 times, or we see 100 only once, 79 only once, and 92 only once. So in this case, my median is just going to be the one that I see most. Now my mode is when I put everything in order. And then the one that's directly in the middle, that's going to be my mode. So in this case, we have 100, 92, 90, 90, 90, 90, and 79. So in this case, my mode would actually be 2 numbers. It would be 92 and 90. Okay, so for this experiment, we're going to be doing a combination of scientific method and trying to remember some of these aspects, because in science, we need to often get the average. We take the average of an experiment, or we may take the median, the ones that are more frequently, because they may have more value depending on the experiment that we're doing. Or in some cases, we may end up taking the mode. Can you guys hear me okay? Even though I'm moving around? Okay, good. So, you guys have M&Ms? I've already counted your M&Ms. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is, in terms of scientific method, let me go back to the board here. Give me 1 second. So when we talk about scientific method, it's one of the most commonly methods that we use in science because science is always going to start with questions, right? How many of you guys have kids? Anybody have kids? Okay, so we have at least one person who has a child. So when we talk about our kids and everything, they often will come up to us and ask those important questions of life, like why is the grass green? Why is the sky blue? And most of us, we haven't given it much thought. And when they ask us, we're like, well, because God made it that way. Or, well, I really don't know. Or, go play your video game, right? Leave me alone. I'm trying to work, you know? So often that's what we end up doing, okay? So your child or your brother or sister or your cousin or whatever little child that you may come in contact with are already budding scientists because it always starts with asking questions. So we're going to be asking questions. That's the first thing that we always do. So in this case, we're talking about a bag of M&Ms. So we want to come up with a question about a bag of M&Ms. So for me, I'm kind of curious as to, are all of the colors the same in a bag of M&Ms? So in other words, do I have 5 browns, 5 reds, 5 blues, 5 yellows, 5 oranges? Or is one more abundant than the other? Or does it depend on each bag? So those are like the questions that I would have. So then the next thing I would do is, so the first thing I would do is, we have a question. So keeping it simple, I'm going to give only right one question. I should say, the very first thing that I did is make an observation. So my observation in this case is going to be M&Ms have different colors. So then I form a question. So my question is, are all the colors in a M&M bag equal?
No, I don't want to social life. I need to microscope.
Okay, well,
Okay. Did you love her?
the microscopes are an M that has a lock, but it's on. Relax. Okay, so they would be under the M lines.
Here.
Okay. Ah,
We talk.
that's good.
Okay, I talk.
We had a comment, we had an understanding, yeah? Okay,
So what, the M is for lot and the M is for microscope.
the L is for lab and the M is for microscope, yes. Oh,
Okay. No, I agree. Yes.
so then we need to make a hypothesis.
You were in class?
It's,
So sorry.
it's okay.
So sorry. You have told me, dude. That was fun. Eh?
So I need to make a hypothesis. So a hypothesis is just basically a guess of what we think is going to happen. So I think, I don't think they're all equal. I think there's a preference for green because green means money, and I like green. Green's my favorite color. So I'm going to say that there are more greens in a bag of M&Ms than any of the other colors. Okay, so then after that, we're gonna actually set up the experiment, right? And we're gonna do the experiment, and then we're gonna do the analysis, get our results. So what we're doing for our experiments, we're gonna count the number of M&Ms for each of the different colors. So then we're gonna do our analysis. That's gonna be making our graphs and tables. Then we get our results. So that's gonna be basically, after we do the analysis, see how our hypothesis compares to what we observed. And then typically, you write a conclusion. And a conclusion is just basically a nice little summary saying, hey, yeah, we were really good, it was great, everything was perfect. My hypothesis was dead on to what I observed, or my analysis, dead on to my analysis, and then, so I don't need to do it anymore. Or no, my hypothesis was nowhere near. And, actually this was the results and this is what we see, okay? And often in science, we would go back and do it again, right? And whether or not we got it right, our hypothesis right or wrong, we would go back and do it again. If our hypothesis initially was wrong, right, we may have to change our question. So sometimes we'll have to go back to the original question, make modifications, or make modifications to the experiment so that we can actually answer the question better. And so that's typically what happens in science. But I think this one is going to be straightforward, so we'll be able to sit there and work through it pretty fast. So what I'd like you guys to do is take your bag of M&Ms. So I will stop sharing here. So you guys, see if I could zoom in. I've got work in my brain. Okay, so you guys can see my bag of M&Ms, right? So then I got a plain old bag of M&Ms, and all I'm going to do is count them. There we go. Okay, so I'm starting off with my orange. If you have a question, feel free to ask me a question at any point. So are you guys counting your M&Ms or have you already done that? Okay. So. I have 4 brown. I have 6 red. I have 5 yellow. I have 14 orange. I have 15 blue. And I have 11 green. Now, this was just my bag, right? And so we can't make an assumption from one data set. So the whole purpose of this is to try to get an idea of overall for all bags. So what we want to do is share our data with the rest of the class's data so that we can get an idea of what went on. So what I'm going to do now is show us how we're going to do that. So give me 1 second. For some reason, my annotate is not working. Okay, so we go down here and we have our values that we just collected. So what I'm going to have you guys do, we're going to click onto Google Sheets. So everybody looks pretty good. Everybody's been entering their data. See if I can make it bigger. Okay, so this is everybody's name. These are our colors. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my information. And so my brown, I had 4. My yellow, I had 5. My orange, I had 14. My red, I had 6. My blue, I had 15. My green, I had 11. So then I want to get my total. So the easiest way of getting my total is to type in equal sum and then open parentheses. And then I'm just going to highlight the area that I got my numbers in. So I'm going to go here. And then I'm going to close my parentheses. So basically C31 to H31. And I hit enter. So that will give me my total number of M&Ms that I had in my bag. Somebody had a lot of M&Ms in their bag. Wow, this number is huge. Did you get the family size or this person got the one that's huge? You got the big bag, Justine? Okay. Okay, so now we have an idea, right? So we have an idea of what's going on and everything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this data for ourselves so that we can use it and so that we can actually make our graphs. So what I'm going to do is, if you guys go up to File, and you see where it says Make a Copy, we're going to make a copy of it. So I'm going to call this Dr. Henry's copy. Okay, so now it's saved on my Google Drive, so I have a copy of all of the data. Okay, and this is going to be important so that we don't mess up anybody else's data or anybody else's table so that I have access to it. So we'll be able to sit there and do tons of different things. Okay, so one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of everybody's stuff over here about their mean, their mode, and everything like that, because I'm going to show you how you go about calculating. So we're going to go ahead and clear this. Sorry, I'm halfway blind, so I can't see across the room, so bear with me. Okay, so I basically deleted everybody's data there. So I also want to make sure that their totals are right because, we all mess up on counting every once in a while. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did with myself, where I just took the sum of the row that I was in. So then all I'm going to do is I'm going to put the plus, it looks like a plus sign in the corner. And then I'm going to click it with my mouse. And then I'm just going to drag it up. Okay, so then in that case, I have the computer calculating the sum of the boxes. So this will let me know that the sum total is correct. Okay, so now I have a table. I have everybody's results. I have the sum of all the results, but I want the sum of everything. So what I'm going to do down here, I'm going to skip a line between me, and then I'm going to put total. So then I can get the total of each color, and then I can get the grand total of everybody's M&Ms. Or let's just call it grand total. And then we'll change the color font, just to kind of make sure that we understand that it's different. Okay, so then we're going to go again, we're going to put equal. And as you can see, it's already started putting things in there for me. As soon as I put equal in there, and it actually says exactly what I wanted to do. Equal sum, and then I want the full sum of everything that's in that column except for that very first row. So then all I have to do is hit enter. And it gives me the sum. Now, rather than having to do that for each one, again, I'm going to go to the corner here. Make my plus, and then I'm just going to drag it across. So then in that case, it's doing the sum for everything, for each of the colors independently, and then the grand total. So now I have the grand total. Okay, questions? Okay, so after that, so if I want to know the average number of browns in everybody's bag, then all I would do here is I'm going to type in average. I'm going to put in parentheses me. So this would let me know the average of brown. Okay. So then I'm going to put equal. I'm going to type average or av. And then as soon as I do that, I have options that will pop up. So this would give me the average from C2 to C30 to C32. So that's the one that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. So then I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to pull it across because then now I'm able to get the average of all of the other colors. So the average for brown was 8.9, so 96. The average for yellow was 8.6. The average for orange was 12.6666667. The average for red is 8.6. the average for blue is 11.46666667, and the average for green is 9.6, and the total average for M&Ms in a bag is 59.9, 9333333. Okay, so that gives me my average. So if I want my mode, I'm gonna go ahead and enter W equal, oops, sorry, let me give you the name first. Mode. So here, we're gonna equal. So we put M, as soon as we put M, we have mode. And so now we have to define our data set. So here's our data set. Actually, I fixed that because I forgot. So then I'm gonna make a little cross on the side, and then I'm gonna pull it over. So our mode. Sorry about that. I got my mode and my median mixed up. So my mode is the one that is the most common. My median is the one that's gonna be in the middle. So again, we're gonna put equal, we're gonna put median, and it'll pop up. And we're gonna select the range. We're gonna make that cross, we're gonna pull it across. Okay. So then I'm gonna put borders around it by selecting my topics, right area. So I want this data to be boxed and bordered because this is really the take home message for me. So I'm gonna go up here to where it has borders and select, then I'm gonna select my type of border. So I want all borders. So then it makes all of the squares. So then I'm gonna give it a label. And then I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna copy this. So I don't have to write it again. And then we're also gonna put borders around. I'm gonna make it a little thicker so that we know that those are the titles. And we box them orange. Okay. Questions so far? Any questions? Question. Okay, no questions, we can move forward. Okay, so let's go back to lab. So this. Okay, so we're gonna make a pie graph that's gonna be using the total number of each color and then the grand total. Okay, and we're also gonna be making bar graphs with the means, the modes, and then with the and sorry, the means, the modes, and that should be median. My bad. Fix that real quick. Okay. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to try to make bar graphs with each of these. So we're going to select our data and the title. And for our purposes, to make things a little bit easier and to kind of keep things tight so that they don't get kind of lost along the way, we have this column B. I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete this column. So then all of our data is going to be nice and tight. And then I'm also going to select the full table, and then I'll remove stuff when we get to actually making the table. Okay, so then we want to make our graph. So if we look on our menu, so we insert chart. Okay, now currently we have a chart inserted and it's stackable, right? It's a stackable chart. Now we could do a stackable chart and we could actually set it up so that it would correlate to the different colors. And then each of the blocks would represent each of those different colors. But I really don't want to do it that way. I mean, you can do it that way, but it's a lot more harder to see. And so what I'm gonna have us do is I'm actually going to change how we have it set up. So I don't want a stackable column. So I'm gonna change the type of graph that I want. So I want a column chart, or I like to call it a bar graph. Okay, so we have everything located here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of our grand total. I want to keep our averages, and I want to be able to see our modes and everything like that. And then I'm probably going to change the colors so that they actually match the colors that we see. So right now we have A32 to A36, which is our x-axis. And that's really what we want. We want these on our x-axis. But we really don't want the grand total. So we're going to get rid of our grand total values. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the ones that are 32. So we're going to change this from A32. So we're going to say A33. And then in our series, we're going to do the same thing. So oh, crap. Okay, hold on. I'm messing up here. Okay, yeah. Actually. Let me see if I can fix this real quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a mistake. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete my graph. So the three dots in the corner will allow me to delete the graph. And then what I do is I'm going to select all my data. And then I'm gonna unselect by hitting Shift. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and edit our chart again. So we know we want to keep the titles, so we want to keep the A series, but we don't want A 33, but we want all the rest, so. Figure out how I'm gonna move that. We may have to shift our data point, which might be easier. Let's go ahead and do that. Easiest way. It wasn't the best plan here. So what I'm gonna do is gonna take my grand total, and I'm gonna move it to the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that and copy and paste. Or I'm gonna hit Control X, which allows me to cut and paste. Control V. Then I'm gonna go ahead and remove this row. And so this allows us to get a better organization. I apologize, a little rusty. So we're gonna go to edit, go down to delete. And we're gonna delete row 30. Okay, so now we have all of our data. And we're gonna highlight just the top part, because we know that when we highlight the other part, including the grand total, it skews everything, so we can't really see the values of the average, the mean, and the. Which is what we can see nicely right now. But I'm gonna go ahead and delete this one. And then I'm gonna just have it regraphed. So I'm not including that before. Again, it's trying to make it stackable. We don't want it to be stackable. We want it to be. We want it to be a column graph. So we have our values for each one. And now we need to sit there and put our legends on there. Okay, so now we have everything labeled, and so we also know that column A is gonna act as our. So this is our label for our different colors. So we should probably use colors that matches the colors that we're naming. Smart thing. Let's see. Okay, so then we're gonna choose the full color for each one. We have yellow.
Rotary.
So again, we're gonna do the fill color. And then if you select the chart itself on the chart, then you're able to get it. So we'll make this a total, so we'll make that one. Okay? So we look at the three different types. So we said the very first one is our average. The second one is our mode. And the last one is our median. And so we can see how the data, how it looks compared to each other. Yes, so try to match your colors. Right, so brown is brown. Yellow is yellow, orange is orange, because then it makes it easier for somebody who's looking at your data. Especially since we're talking about colors. Okay, any questions? Okay. So then we want to use our grand total to make our pie graph. Now, in this case, when we go to our grand totals, we only want the grand totals of our data set. So what I'm going to do is to kind of make it easier for ourselves, I'm just going to select this guy, and then I'm going to come down here and select. Got to try to remember the commands. I'm using a Mac now. I used to use a PC for all of this, so commands are a little bit different. So I'm gonna, when I select, I'm gonna hit Command. And then I'm gonna be able to select the top and the bottom. So now I've selected them all except for the grand total on the end. So I'm not selecting these guys at all. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit Command Copy or Control Copy if you guys are using a PC. One second. So I have my copy. I think I'm gonna have to go up here, and when I hit paste, I'm gonna go to special paste. Now, I want only the values. I don't want it to do the codes. So then I'm copying the exact values that I have. Okay, so then I'm gonna just go ahead and make a box around it to make my life a little bit easier. Okay, so I have it bordered. And then I'm going to graph it. This time I want to make a pie graph. Okay, so then I'm gonna go ahead and do exactly the same thing. I want my fill color to be different. So I want green to be green. So I'll go ahead and pick my color. I want brown to be brown. I want yellow to be yellow. Looks like they got orange right. And then red to be red. And blue. Okay, so then they have names already, but they might not be the name that we want to have for our graph. Yes, there's definitely been quite a bit more added since you were on. So you may want to resubmit it. Yes, and because then your data looks better, right? Because you have more than just 2 people on it or 9 people. So we're going to call this the pie graph of M&M colors. Okay, so now that we have this nice, beautiful graph made, right? We're able to sit there and take a look at it and look at the percentages to sit there and let us know which one is the most abundant based upon our data. So if we took here, in this case, we're not taking the average. We took the whole number, right? Everybody's number. So this one is going to probably be more accurate and giving us an idea of in an M&M bag, which ones are going to typically be more abundant. Or what we would believe to be more abundant. Okay, that's okay. I haven't graded them yet because I knew that we were going to go over it, and I figured that you guys would want to try to get it right. Make sure that you got everything covered, and I knew that a couple of people had issues with some of the graphs. Okay, so if we looked at the data, it looks like we have 50% green. We have, I think that's 50% brown. We have 19% blue. We have 14.3% yellow, 14.4% red, and 21.1% orange. So looking at our data, which color is most abundant? Over the big picture. Anyone? So my hypothesis was that the green was going to be the most abundant. Is the green the most abundant? Looking at our graph. The orange. Okay, so we know that the orange is going to be the one that's the most abundant. And then we know that the blue isn't too far behind it. Which one is the least abundant? The yellow. Okay, so we know that the yellow and the red are almost about equal about being the least abundant. Yellow was 14.3, red was 14.4. Now, if we looked at our mean, or our average, right? We had orange being the most abundant. But if we looked at our mode, which means the one that we see most commonly, it's the lowest number. So we know that when we're trying to get a fix as to the numbers, or representation that are actually there, then we know that we're going to be looking at our average or possibly our mean. I mean, our average, sorry, which is our mean, or our median. Now, the median is kind of funny because all it is, it's that middle point, that middle value, the value that we have in the middle. Okay. And so based upon our data, orange happened to work out perfectly. But if we looked at the blue, it's hard to tell in that case. But in terms of our average, we can tell that the blue truly represents, it's the second most abundant. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so what we just discussed, that's what you're going to be writing in a results of a lab notebook. So you're talking about it and what you see, you're telling us what you observed and what we see and how that compares to your results. So then how does that compare to your personal results? Right? So for me, my most abundant one was the orange, which, okay, orange was the most abundant. Or actually, it was orange and blue. Blue was actually one more than the orange. So my blue and orange were the most abundant. And so that's what we observed. And based upon what everybody else seen and based upon their average, that's pretty much what we all pretty much saw. And then our least abundant happened to be the yellow and the red being our least abundant. So does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so now that we have all that beautiful data, we can go back and answer some of our questions. Okay, so we know the mean, the mode, the mean, the median, and the mode for the total numbers, right? Because we have that from our data set. So we just go down here, and this would give us our total right here. So we know that the mode was 54, the median was 52, and then we also had our average, which was, or our mean, which is 59.993333. So we also know what other types of information we can get. We can get an idea of which color was the most abundant, which color was the least. Now, also, if we take a look at the data, we look at our numbers, 14 was our low, 14.4. Then we had 16 and 15, and then we had 19 and 20, right? So they're not too far off. And that's also what we can see from our pie graph, right? The pie pieces are approximately the same, but it looks like blue may be a little bit bigger and orange may be a little bit bigger, but just a little bit. It's not like crazy. Does that make sense? And you guys can see that from the data. So what are some things that we can say? By looking at the data. What other information can we get? Okay, so you want to put that other information that you guys think you can get. So if we said that the data did not answer our original question, in my case it did, but let's say the question that you asked, it didn't answer. Do you think we can gather data that could be useful or a waste of time, and explain? Based upon our data, what interferences can we make? I'm sorry, what inferences can we make about a typical bag of M&Ms? What can we provide? Can we provide actual numbers? So if we look at our data, let's look at this table. Make it a little bit bigger so I can see stuff. As I said, I'm halfway blind, so. Okay, so if we look at everybody's data, so could we give you exactly the number in every bag of M&Ms? No, that's right. We can't because they all vary, right? No two bags were exactly alike. But we can make general statements based upon what we see, based upon our averages. What are some of the general statements that we can make? So let's look at the data. So according to our average, is there anything that we can say? Yeah, so if we looked at the table, we had a few people that had relatively high numbers. So one of them may have been a family size and one of them may have been the to share pack, right? Where on the average, we're gonna say it looks around 50, 50-ish, 30 to 50-ish is the number of M&Ms. We have a really small one. It's like, is that a mini bag? I wonder if Noah is around, so. But on the average, it looks like anywhere from 50 or so in there. Did any of you guys use peanut M&Ms? And would that be different than what we would expect for plain M&Ms? So what do you think is gonna be the outcome of having peanut M&Ms? Less M&Ms, yeah. Don't you feel robbed? How many people like peanut M&Ms? I love peanut M&Ms. Now I like peanut butter M&Ms too. Okay. So do you think this data is going to be helpful for a larger bag of M&Ms? Well, actually, we have a couple of larger bag M&Ms in there. Do you guys think that was helpful? No. Okay. Yes. So we have contradictions. One says yes and one say no. So does our average help us get approximately the average that we see in a larger bag? So let's take a look. So we have a few larger bags of M&Ms. Based upon my observation, I'll highlight them. Thank you guys for doing that extra experiment for us to answer that question. So, I guess we're helping to see what colors we have. So we have brown. So which one are the most abundant? Orange and blue. Okay, let's look at the ones that were 100. Yep. Okay, so here we have the ones that were 100. So, which one in this case are the most abundant? We have orange. And in this case, this was green. And then other place where there's 100, we have, it's like again, orange. And in this case, it looks like green. So I guess it wouldn't be, 100% because it doesn't seem like the average holds up with those larger bags. We had one more. Although this one we had 19, 20. So these were almost equivalent. So. Okay. So you're gonna have to go ahead and fill out this table. So for this experiment, you have your question that you asked, you had your hypothesis, what was the experiment? You have your analysis, what we just did. Now you just have to type that all up and then your conclusion. Okay? Not too bad. If you have any questions, here's a great time to ask those questions. So if there's something that you missed on filling out the table, and everybody made a copy, right? Our very first step is to make a copy of it. Yes, I can clarify. So if we go through, here we just basically presented the data in table form to help us look at it. So if we look at it, we take a look at the average, right? So here, this is the total average of all of the M&Ms is black, but we know all the others are based upon color. So we have our orange and our blue are going to be more abundant. Where our least abundant looks like it's going to be yellow and red based upon the average, right? If we look at the median, we have our orange is the most abundant. It looks like red, blue, and green are approximately all the same. And so when we talk about analysis, when we analyze the data, so analyzing the data is actually doing the graphing of the data. So making the actual graph of it, and then using that data to make statements that are factual based upon our data. Now, sometimes we look at things like our standard deviation or like our, which we're not talking about right now. And I don't think I'm going to talk about for this class, but we will look at our standard deviation to determine whether or not our data is truly valid. Is it going to give us enough information that is distinguishable, right? If our values are all over the place, which ours are all over the place, if you look at it for the most part, they're all over the place, right? They're not very consistent, with each other, right? They lack precision, meaning that they lack being close together, right? And so if they're not very precise, you can't say anything about accuracy, right? But we can say that if we looked at our average compared to our total numbers, those things look very comparable to each other, right? So which suggests that there is a general trend that we can make, right? Such as orange and blue are a little bit more abundant than the other ones. Okay, so that's what, when we talk about analysis, is actually graphing the data and making statements about it. So that's actually more the results. Results are, the analysis is the process of graphing it and putting a table, and then results is making the statements based upon that analysis. Does that help? Any other questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, I have nothing else to tell you. So this week, you guys will be getting another homework assignment that'll be adding up, that'll be coming up. You will also be able, we will be talking about chapters 3. We'll be finishing up that packet, and then we'll be starting chapter 2. So you'll start getting chapters 2 homework will actually be opening up. And then you'll have a lab on Labster. And so, and it'll actually deal with measurements until you guys are able to get your measurements. So how do you submit your answers? That is a very good question. So what you guys can do is you can take this table, right? And you can answer those questions at the very end. You can put it on the table itself and then upload that. So save it, of course, which it saves automatically. But if you actually, let's see. So if you download it as a PDF. Yeah, that's fine if you did it on Excel. Excel and Google Sheets, they behave very similarly. So it's fine that you did it on that. That's fine. So go ahead and save it as a PDF and then upload it onto Canvas. So the way that you upload it onto Canvas is, let's see, let me give this guy a name. This a little bit so I can actually see something. Sorry, I'm having trouble seeing top of my screen, so. Okay. Okay, so it looks good. Let him go on. Can't see. Okay, so then I have my PDF. Somewhere on my laptop. Then I'm gonna go ahead and go to Canvas. So I'm gonna go to Student View. And for me, the easiest thing to do is to go to Grades. Right? And so here it'll say at the very top, if you go to Grades, go down to the assignment that you're looking for. So I'm a horrible student, I haven't done any of my work. Maybe 12 in this class. So then I'm gonna select this one. Lab 1, scientific method. I'm gonna go ahead and hit submit assignment. So then I'm just gonna go ahead and choose my file. So I'll go ahead and select choose file. Oh, that's not. I didn't even say anything that I did. My PDF. Okay, somewhere I have a PDF on here, so let's just assume that this is gonna be my PDF. Right here. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And then I'm gonna go ahead and fix it. Okay. Yes, yes, you wanna make sure that you put both of them together, so you can make it a PDF and merge the PDF together. That's the best thing to do, so then it's a single PDF that I'm looking at. Otherwise, I'll have to, if you have multiple copies, I'll have to go through and take a look at all your different copies. Takes longer. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Since there are no other questions, I'm gonna let you guys go. Oh, wait, I submitted to one Word and one Excel. Yeah, so if you could do me a favor, and if you can make them both a PDF, in both cases, you can do that in Excel and in Word, you can make it a PDF, and then, and put the PDF together. So if you go to Adobe Acrobat Reader, you should be able to merge the two. So that'll be one file, because it's always better if it's a single file rather than two independent ones. Thank you. Any other questions? So if there are no other questions, you can eat your M&Ms and you guys can have a good night. And then I'll see you guys, hopefully I'll see some of you guys on Wednesday. And I'm still here if there are any other questions. Hopefully this was helpful. Let's see. Actually, got a few more. Okay, you have a different question regarding a different assignment. Which assignment do you have a question about? Okay, so let's go to Canvas. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to get out of student view because it's easier to see on my side. I have groups on my side, not on my side. Okay, so if you take a look on the left-hand side, there is something that looks like this icon right here. Okay, so right there, that's going to be your groups. Okay, so you want to go ahead and select on it. And then it's going to list all your groups. Okay, every last one of them. Now, mine says science, math, and health. That's the group that I'm working with. Yours is going to say a topic in chemistry. It's going to give a chapter, and then it's going to give you a genre of music. So click on that, and then you'll be able to find this page. And so it'll say home, announcements, page, people, discussion, files. Okay, now if you go to people and you select on it, that's going to be your group members. Okay. So then what you're going to do is you can either take a screenshot of that and upload it so we know who your group is, but you also need to send them a message. Yeah, but your group, your discussion, unless you did it in here in your group, they won't have access to the general discussion. I mean, they may have access to the general discussion. That's fine. But what you want to do is you want to send them an announcement, right? So then you're just going to go up here and add an announcement. Okay, now when you do that, you'll be able to sit there and introduce yourself, and it sends it to everyone, including myself. Okay, does that help? Okay, so when you do your general, when you did your introduction, that's going to be a little bit different than what you did for, because that's the whole class, that introduction, and not everybody sees it. They may see just the one that's right above it. So this one, this is sending it directly to your group, and only to your group. Okay, let's see what other questions. Okay, if there are no other questions, you guys are free to go. If there are other questions, I'm still here. Okay. Well, I will see you guys on Wednesday. You guys have a good night. That's fine. I mean, but ideally what I want you to get in the habit of doing is making it a single submission where it's just the PDFs and you're merging them together. So if you can, just play with it a little bit so you get in the habit of it. I'll let it go this time, but we want to get you in the habit of making a single PDF when you're uploading. Does that make sense? And the way that you would do that, the best way of doing it, and if you have questions about it, is you can go to YouTube and you can type in making or merging two PDFs into one. And so usually there's somebody that'll show you to do it, how to do it step by step. That's the best way of doing it. So then that way you can always have it as at your fingertips. And I would bookmark it because I always forget stuff. I know I look young and beautiful, but I'm kind of old. Okay. So I'm going to let you go. You have a good night.